Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar this month. Sorry that we're running just a couple minutes behind. We appreciate your patience as we worked through some technical difficulties here right at the beginning. My name's Chad Erickson. I'm the Vice President of Strategy for MyAdvice. So for those of you who don't know who I am, there you go. And I'm excited. We're almost to spring. We actually are excited. You know, new seasons, new time, opportunity for fresh starts, and that's a lot of what we're going to be talking about today. Of some new, fresh approaches to your business and helping you be successful. I'm really excited to have our presenters with us today. I had an opportunity to meet Jed Wonderly at a conference back in December, and we immediately hit it off. And one of the things that I constantly look for in a business development role is who are some partners or vendors out there that are going to help our customers, and we want them to feel that in various ways. Sometimes it's products or services in the office. Other times, like the one you're going to hear today, it's about how does it actually put money back in your pocket, money that is yours. And so we're going to be talking about that. And there's some great insights you're going to learn about today that you probably didn't know about. And I'm really excited about this. Let me go ahead and introduce our two presenters today, and a little bit more about the Acquire Tax Credits group. So they have worked in various sections of the healthcare industry. They really understand how to work with the state and federal credits to make sure that you're getting those tax credits back to you. And they work hand in hand directly with your account. So this is not a replacement for your accounting group, the people you've known forever. Okay, so I want to make sure that's very clear right up front. But let me introduce first of all Scott Broadbent, the CEO. So Scott's he has more than 20 years in the financial markets. He serves individuals and businesses throughout the United States, and he specializes in financial and tax planning for science, medical, dental, and research industries, and has an undying love for helping his clients, and has dedicated his career to their best interest. His professional past interest includes the fact that he's experienced as a licensed representative of FINRA in Arizona and Utah, and works with clients nationwide. He's also licensed for variable annuity principles. In 2020, Scott started Acquire Consultant LLC, which is a state registered investment advisor located in South Jordan, Utah. And his passion and family of clients has grown. He's added multiple business lines to his suite of services, including wealth management, portfolio construction, and custom asset allocation, retirement planning, estate and succession planning, and a program to design help his clients benefit financially from the research and development of these tax credits, which is what we're going to really discuss today. Jed Wonderly, Jed, go ahead and wave to him so they know who you are. So Jed started his career at Fidelity as a Series 7 advisor, and then moved on to mortgage financing. Since starting with Acquire, he's taken on a more comprehensive financial role to help practices save money in their taxes. Jed also has a life insurance license that allows him to help doctors with supplemental retirement income. He's also a huge University of Utah fan. Both of these guys are passionate about sports. Sometimes we get on a call and we actually get distracted from what we're supposed to be talking about, and we end up talking about football, basketball, baseball. So I'm glad to know that they are very passionate about those things as well. But what I've loved about getting to know both of them is they are really committed, and what they've put together and what you're going to learn about today is truly remarkable, and what they're doing to help you uncover more money that is going to be able to be used for the next equipment purchase if you're looking at that, maybe more in your marketing. That's my shameless plug for upping your ante with MyAdvice, or it could be for people or that long-awaited vacation. But regardless, this is a way to really maximize what's going on in your practice today, and they're going to share some amazing things with you. So Scott and Jed, we'll go ahead and turn it over to you. I know you got a little bit of a presentation, and then for everyone who's on here, we are recording this, and I'll moderate any of the questions you have. We'll hold the questions until the end. So let's go.
Perfect. And can you see our presentation? Do I need to click on that to start it up, Chad?
Cannot see your presentation yet.
Kind words, Chad. Appreciate it.
I'm seeing your event flow approval right now, Scott. And while Scott's getting that worked out on there, there we go. Now we can see the presentation.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
you're going to learn about some, this what they call research and experimentation credit, which is this R&E. So you're going to learn a lot more about that, who qualifies, various tests, etc. So we'll get into those. We'll let them get into those details on this. But if you want to go ahead and hit play on your presentation, I think it'll be good to go, Scott.
so
Excuse me.
research and experimentation credits, it's a really interesting thing. Most of you on this call can probably remember back to the early 80s when people do mostly pharmaceutical research, or they're looking at things along the lines of cancer research. And so most people, when they think of research and experimentation, or a lot of people call it research and development, usually that is their beginning spot. And that is the origins of tax credits. That was the origins of essentially the US government coming in and giving incentives for us to improve in the medical space that patient experience. And we define that as innovation, which is really interesting. If you were to ask yourself, in the last 3 to 5 years, have you done anything to improve your patient care? And if you, as you sit here, if you're nodding your head or you're saying yes, then you're headed down the lane of you might be a great candidate for a research and experimentation credit. Now, when we go out to our meetings, and can you see that video, Chad? Did that come up just fine when I switched that on there?
It does. If in that lower
Perfect.
right-hand corner, Scott, if you want to push the play button, it'll bring up everything full screen. Right now, we're still in your presenter notes. So down by that slider, right next to the minus button is where you hit that play button, and that will make that slide come full screen. Right there. There you go.
There we
Perfect.
go. Okay. So when we go out to a lot of our big conferences, there's going to be groups here like BDO, Deloitte and Touche, and Bailey. And most people know these. If you don't know them, BDO is the 4th largest accounting firm in the world. Deloitte is one of the top 3 in the US, and Bailey is a top 25 that specializes and does a ton of dental work, which is an area we do a bunch in as well. And as much as I'm telling you about some of our competitors, I'm telling you about us as well. We're very specialized in doing this. And then inside of here, what makes this unique is tax credits got a bump up and a congressional budget line item in 2015 with the PATH Act. Let's see, it's starting with the PATH Act. And what happened is Congress made them permanent and allocated about $56 billion in budgeting for these. And right now, only about $8 or $9 billion a year is being utilized. So you have to ask yourself, am I doing those things related to improving my patient care? Some of our people in the dentist go, well, I do crown work. I've always done crown work, or I do implant work. I've been doing that for years. It's not necessarily that you do crowns. It's what improvements have you done in the crown areas, in your materials or sealants? How are you doing it? What's the technique you do? What are the scanners that you currently use, and why did you upgrade? Why did you do all of those things, which we call innovation, to improve that patient outcome? Those are the things that bring relevance to that credit. Now, the IRS has a 4-part test that they ask you to do. So I'm going to ask these questions of you, and I kind of posed one earlier, but in the last 3 to 5 years, have you done things to improve that client experience? And you can easily answer you can easily answer that question of, yes, I am approved to do tax credits. If you train your staff, if you go to CE events and bring in and collaborate with colleagues, if you have people in conferences you go to, if you have associations that put out and publish white papers, all of those go into the improvement of your practice and ultimately improvement of that patient care. And that is qualifying you for that. Most of our dental practices and specialty groups, one of their biggest questions they always have for us is, I just do the same thing I've always done. And then as we dig into it, by qualifying research activities that we know you're doing, and then behind those, we want to quantify the numbers, right? And so we look at your wages related to your time on, say, crowns. We look at the wages of your staff. We look at the supplies related around it, whether you do some of that milling in-house or externally. We look at both of those. And then we look at whether you bring in outside contractors. If you have associates that you're working with and all of that, all of those factor into and quantify an expense that you can take. I'll show you an example of that here in just a minute, but those become, now if you're sitting here and you're saying, well, tell me in my practice, what does that look like? So I'm going to give you the ability to do a quick estimate, okay? So Chad, can I ask you just a couple of quick questions on an average dental practice that you see out there? Is that okay? Is it 1 million to 1.5 is a great sweet spot where a lot of your practices might fall, or even between 1 and 2 million, a lot of them fall between there in gross revenue a year?
Absolutely. That's where a lot of them fall. That's a perfect sweet number for many of our dental clients.
So then all of them sitting on here, let me give them a way to quantify this for them. I want you to take 2 to 3% of that number. So between anywhere from 20,000 to is 20, 30,000 on the low end to 40 to 60,000 on the high end. That is probably their federal credit. And then you're going to add on some state to that, depending on where you're at. If you're in Arizona, you're going to add on another 120%. If you're in California, Utah, you're going to add 75. If you're in Oregon, you're going to add more. If you're in Nevada, or if you're in Texas or Florida, because you have no state tax, there is no state additional credit. But the credits become at the federal level, and they also give you a state one. So if you are taxed in both places, there's a good chance that you can eliminate or reduce a lot of what you have in taxes, both on a federal and a state level. And so that's just a good ballpark. So if you're sitting on here and you start to say, well, gosh, that puts me at, 2-3%, 20, 30,000 on my million. I might have a state credit that gives me another 10 or 15. I might be looking at $35,000 to $50,000 in tax credits. That's probably not a bad way to kind of view your practice and what we see on average coming out of there. Something along those lines.
Scott, the other thing you might back multiple years and that this morning out of Florida, no state tax credit, but he had a rather large practice, and his tax credit's going to end up being about $360,000 for 19, 20, 21, and 22.
So Jed makes a good point. When you do these credits, obviously you can do 2022 before you file your taxes, just extending with. But a lot of your CPAs will have no issue with you doing 21, 20, and then back to 19. And the rule is we can only go back the filing of 3 tax years. Right now, where we're filing 22s, but we're going back 21, 20, and 19, you're able to actually get 4 years work in, but and then you just amend those and your CPA does it. Most of the biggest questions our CPAs ask us, Chad, as we're sitting there talking to them, is we say, is there anything that this doctor has done in the last 3 or 4 years that would cause us pause to not want to file an amended return, right? Did they have some anomaly? Did you inherit them and the guy before did something weird that they didn't like? If that's your profile, we'll customize it to that so that you don't put anything at audit risk. But if you've been pretty standard and doing the same thing with the same CPA, they're 90% of the time going to give us a thumbs up and say, hey, amend my returns, give me that couple $100,000 worth of credits. And then we file those, and then those checks just start to come into you, as quick as the federal government can do it.
The funny thing is that when I was he said he wanted to talk to his CPA to make sure the CPA call later in the morning with it out of the gate that he didn't have a real good understanding of letting his clients.
Jed, just say wait 1 second, Jed. We actually can't hear you. You'll have to come a little closer to the microphone. We'd love to hear what you just said, but you're just too far away.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So what I was saying is that the dentist that I was chatting with this morning, he one of the things that he told me when we were wrapping up the call is that he wanted to chat with his CPA. His CPA works for a firm that kind of specializes in dentists. They have 4 specialties, and the CPA that he works with is in the dental group. And so he said, I always got to have approval from my CPA to make sure that everything is kosher with him. And he said, if he gives me the okay, then I'm going to go ahead with it. And so I talked to a CPA a couple hours later, and the CPA admitted right off the bat that he wasn't very familiar with tax credits. He knew that they existed, but probably needed to increase his knowledge and whatnot so that he could be comfortable with them. So we chatted about a number of things with regard to the tax credit. And, he was thanking me right and left, and he was very appreciative that I was able to kind of enlighten him, if you will. And he said, boy, this is great. He said, we haven't found a company that we could refer our clients to, because we have a lot of clients who would want to take advantage of this, but we're not comfortable with it. But hearing this is the kind of knowledge that I needed to feel comfortable about saying, yes, go ahead. So he told me flat out right at the end, he said, so tomorrow I'm speaking with the doctor. I'll tell him to move forward with it. And then we can start referring you clients as well. So what we found, and I'm sure this is the same thing with Scott, is that there are a lot of CPAs whose familiarity with them is just that they exist. They don't know. I get a question a lot. He was like, well, how does a general dentist qualify for a tax credit? Scott, you probably heard that once or twice.
A whole lot, yeah. Because they say we do the same stuff we've always done. But you have to understand, innovation is the introduction of new techniques, new style points, a small variation in what you're doing, new equipment. And new equipment is often, even in your general dentist, they're adding new equipment all the time. Or we have a lot of them that want to do implants and go get trained on implants and start bringing that into their practice, or they're doing dentures, or they're doing different things. A lot of them, their outside lab does the innovating for them on their materials. It's kind of interesting. We'll call them up and they say, yeah, our lab has actually changed our materials 3 times in the last 5 years. And we go, tell us about it. And they'll document that through. And then we find out why they did it and the benefit to the patient. And that's what we're documenting in that study. And crowns and outside labs, we do that a lot.
One of the funny things was I was talking to the CPA this morning, and he says, well, what kind of things qualify? And I said, well, first of all, general dentists aren't the same today as they were when I was growing up. When I was growing up, they cleaned your teeth, and they took x-rays, and they filled your cavities. I said, now they do a whole lot of the specialties. So a general to me isn't just general anymore. But I said, take for instance, a general dentist who invests in an iTero scanner. And he goes, oh, I'm very familiar with that. They can use it for Invisalign. And he, rattled off a whole number of things that they could use it for. And I'd say, see, all of those kind of things are the kind of things that create the qualified research activity that is the basis of the tax credit. And he's like, oh, I've got so many clients that have invested in one of those and could probably benefit from you for that. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a good way to kind of look at that. Let me jump on to the next one. When the dentist or specialist talks to us and says, hey, I want to look at this a little closer, what we do is we have kind of a 3-step process that we're going to work with them on. And what we're going to do is we're going to first interview them just on their lunch hour. Let us interview you, talk with you about what you're doing, and we're going to get a feasibility study from you. So we're going to identify your qualifying research activities. We're going to ask you some wage and supply information. Then from there, what you're going to do is you're going to introduce this to your CPA. That's the very next call for us. We want to talk to your tax professional. That's who we're going to be working with. That's who we want to talk to. And we're going to get them on the phone. We're going to verify some of the numbers that you gave, get some additional clarification on some other numbers. We're also going to bring them into the loop on our estimate and talk to them about how to help you plan that into your life. Many of the dentists on here probably have W-2s, and they also send in quarterly taxes. So if you've got, say, a $40,000 tax credit, Chad, it's really easy to take and reduce your quarterlies by $10,000 per quarter, right? Because if I do that, you get to save on that money right now, right? So your next payment's April, and then your next one after that's the summer, and then the fall, and then of course January. And so we talk to the CPA, we get them on the phone, the CPA relays right to the client that advice as we get down to the end, and they love it. So we visit with your CPA, then we come back with you. It's usually a week in between there because CPAs are hard to track down. Let's just say it like it is. Then we're back with you. You engage with us. You say, I want to do this. And then from there, you sign our paperwork, engage with us. You're going to come back and talk to our medical writing team and our analyst. And so our analyst is our number compiler and the one that works directly with your CPA, and the writer is going to work directly with you. And every doctor always asks us, what kind of time commitment is this? Is this going to take me 10 hours, 20 hours, 30 hours? And we say, will it surprise you to think that it's about 2 lunch hours and maybe part of another one as we kind of collaborate on the end? And they go, that doesn't seem like a lot. And I go, it's because we already know you what the iTero scanner can do. We already understand all the crown work. We just want to try to get your highlight reel, right? Once I get your highlight reel where I can capture that, our writing team will go compose that, put that together. And so you can see right here, we discover, we compile it, and then we're going to collaborate and deliver that to you and work back directly with your CPA. We give him the sheets that he needs so he can fill it out. He throws it into your taxes, and that's money that you get to save this year on April 15th, or if you extend on your September deadline and your October personal deadline. So it really becomes a very practical solution. If you're sitting on the call, I'll tell you a doctor in Southern California we just talked to. He takes all of his compensation W-2 out of his S-corps, okay? So I said, well, and we figured I was going to save him about $40,000 a year. So we called up his CPA and says, what does he withhold? I think it was around $100,000 for tax. And we just lowered it down to 70. So now he withholds about 70,000 out of his W-2. And at the end of the year, he should just be right there where he was before. And his CPA did the numbers, ran it, and gave him the direct advice on it. So the doctor looked at us because he said, how am I going to pay for your services? And when he found out that in January he was saving $3,000, February $3,000, at a little over $3,000 a month, he goes, this is easy. You guys won't get done till this fall. My CPA will file it. By the time I'm paying you, I've already saved 20-something plus $1,000. Your fee I think our fee was around 10 of it, of the 40. And he was ecstatic because he knew before we were ever even going to be done, our fees were already paid for. And it was kind of fun to have him looking and goes, wow, that's actually money in my pocket that I got to use, buy my boat, whatever it was I was going to go do. And I got that immediately. So it was just kind of fun to see him dream about what he was going to do with his money. Some of our doctors love to use it to get out of debt. Some love it to do whatever. We've had some that said, hey, I was going to go buy a boat. Now I get to pay cash for my boat. And we laughed. We thought that was kind of funny, but the uses are endless. It's just whatever you want to do with it. So that is really, Chad, a lot of the crux of what kind of, if you look at the credit, what it exists and the uses of it and a good way to estimate it. Now, let's take a second. I'm going to jump out of this slide presentation. I'm going to show you just a quick orthodontic one, so you get a little bit of an idea of what it looks like at the finished product. Is that fair?
Perfect.
I'm going to make that a little easier to read. We're going to jump right to my third page right here. So this is the front page of it, and I'll make it. Can you see that okay? I know it's probably a little bit small on your screen. So this was an orthodontic study that we did. They were changing up their wire and bracket system. So if you're a dentist, a general, or you're a specialist, if you're an ortho and you're sitting on the call, this is right up your alley. If you're general and you just add orthodontics, you can use this as part of what you're doing. So they were changing up their braces system. I think they were going to the Damon Ultima. And so what we did was we did about a 94-page study. You can kind of see in the summary here, where we went down through all their qualifying research activities. So we looked at these activities right here. Can you see that, Chad, in kind of the alternating blue and white?
Yes.
So we were looking at their arch wire. We were looking at their molar displacement, their bite block, the adhesives they were using, the resins they had, how they used the cone beam to assess the new bracket system and how that was being developed with the cone beam. All of those things went into looking at what they were doing. And I'll just highlight one of them for you in our sample here. So this was the development and evaluation of a new bracket, wire, and adhesive combinations in the supervision, guidance, and correction of dentofacial structure. So this was the adhesives part, or that section of it. And what it is we first look, when we interview that doctor, we go in and we say, tell us what your protocol is in your office. When a new patient walks in to when a new patient gets assessed, what is going to be their treatment? What's that process? And so we have that process and we'll lay that out for the dental specialist. Then we come in here and we visit with them about how are you looking at your alternatives? How do you do your training with your staff, your CE? What are you doing with your colleagues and all of that stuff that kind of works into how you improve it time over time. And then when you get into the write-up itself, and this is always kind of an important piece, is can you see, Chad, kind of this base part right here where you've got the footnotes? So a lot of our doctors say, how do I show that what I'm doing is really research and experimentation? How am I going to stand up in an audit? And this is one of those pieces, because this is primary research that we go out and find, pull into the study to give credence that what is being done on a national level experimenting can also be done on your local level. And then the fun part is your highlight reel. What variations on even that are you doing? Because we find that most of our dentists do small variations from somebody else. It's amazing how many little tiny things you can do differently than the guy next door. And so this is one of those things that we highlight on that. It's just amazing because, I mean, everybody tries to be on the cutting edge. This just gives you a way to get paid to be good at what you do. From there, you're looking at when you're working through this, let's talk about that wages, kind of just the expenditure section. Can you kind of see in this table 7? So we've got an orthodontist, and we've got what, about 10 office people. Then here's all their salaries. So that's our starting place. And then here in table 8, this particular procedure or activity got about 10% of most of the office's times, but you'll notice there's some zeros and some tens. Can you see Caitlin Kiger right here?
Yes.
Oh, she gets no time, no money of her salary applied to anything. And part of it is because in this office, Caitlin Kiger, if we come up here, her description, she's front office and she's not trained as an assistant in the back. So she has no direct involvement with the patient. So as a result, she stays out of it. So it's just going to be those individuals that are really involved in the care. And then here, I'm sure if we were sitting there with a bunch of them, how many of them know Henry Schein and Patterson Dental and Plaque Smackers? I mean, everybody's
Right.
nodding their head, I'm sure, on the call, because these are, and so, but you'll notice the thing that's interesting about this is it's right down to the penny. So when the IRS comes and gives us the protocols, or under their memorandums, they describe what you can do. On your time, it's somewhat subjective, meaning tell me whether it's 10% of your time, 5, 7, whatever that happens to be. But on the supplies, Chad, it has to be to the penny. And so the accuracy with the records that we pull from your CPA, out of your general ledger, sometimes directly from your invoices from Patterson Dental, depending on what you're doing, we're going to pull that data, hold that. So if you're ever audited, we have down to the penny what you took, the supply related to the procedure. And so we've got a wonderful audit defense. That is the one area that our tax attorney, so for your CPA, and we'll send this out to our CPAs pretty much routinely on our first visit. We send them a white paper from our tax attorney, and he gives his take on defending tax credits nationally and what he sees from IRS auditors. And what he talks about in there is having a good administrative company that does this kind of level of detail creates an immense amount of audit support for you as the doctor. And so we take that seriously and go all the way down to the penny, because we know that's what wins if we ever get challenged. And we've had some of our doctors be looked at by the IRS, and guess what? They came back and said, we're good. And so we also put in there a warranty on our audit defense. We don't want you defending your study. We want our tax attorneys, our groups that are specialized in this area. We're going to jump in. We'll work directly with your CPA. We're going to put that warm and fuzzy on it so that you aren't going to have issues. You know, I got asked the other day by a dentist. He goes, so if I get audited, and this is always audit, there's a lot of questions around audit, but this was a really big one. He said, if I get audited, is this kind of an all or nothing thing, right? Am I either getting my $50,000 or zero? And we said, no. 99% of the time, if there's a question on the audit that they want to challenge 1 or 2 items, your 50 might turn into 48 or 46 because they want to throw something out, or you're going to give them something. But I said, think about that in the context of a 5-year period. You took $250,000 in credits. So $250,000 in taxes were paid into the system on your behalf. Worst case scenario, you maybe gave back 10. And they kind of look at me and they go, well, that's I'd take that exchange all day. And we go, yeah, we know. Most of the time, if our records are really good, they just give us a thumbs up and move on. But if they really want to challenge something, it's not going to be an all or nothing. It's always a back and forth with the IRS. There's no such thing as you don't get a tax credit. There's $56 billion allocated. Our credit's going to get something. If something in the records maybe wasn't there that we wanted there, that's the only place where we ever see that we give a little bit back. Is we've had a few that have said, hey, I don't have really a good record on this, but I did do it. Let's put it through. The CPA gives them a thumbs up, and we go, hey, if we give them a few grand back because we can't get proof to the level they want, we're great. But if they don't care, then we're great, right? Either way, we're great, and we're way ahead. Those studies that we do are will have a duration of 3 to 5 years. But for most of our doctors, we get asked this question, Chad. They go, are you guys going to come help us once and then you're gone? And we look at them and say, no, most of our doctors that we've been working with since the beginning are still with us. And the reason is, if you asked yourself in the last 3 to 5 years, have you improved? Have you modified? Have you changed? Have you been to conferences and added procedures? Have you added equipment? And most of them start to say, well, yes, yes, no, yes, yes.
Right.
And as they're saying that, we go, then you're likely going to have us for life unless you hate us. If you like us, we will be with you for many, many years, documenting your highlights, telling your story about how you're unique. We even had one that took his study, published it, modified a few of the numbers so they didn't know all of his personal stuff, but modified it and put it out on his desk in the front office so people could see a research and development of what he was doing, because he felt like science and development, he wanted to share that with his patients. We thought that was so cute. So yeah, we haven't had enough response where we wanted to do that for everybody, but for a few that want something like that, yeah, we're more than happy to advertise for you and for us a little bit on your desk out there. Good light reading for at night. So that's what the study looks like, Chad. It's going to be a version of what you're seeing right there. It's going to be comprehensive. It's going to be extremely detailed, and it's going to really tell that doctor's highlight, which we just love. We love the fact we even had an attorney. I'm sure you've heard of a few dentists over the years that get sued by something that goes wrong, right? One of the main things that one of our litigating attorneys said to us as a feedback that was referring to some, so he goes, do you know, when I go into court to represent my dentist, that we don't have necessarily a true written procedure of everything we do, how we do it, and what happens. He goes, but with this, if I ever get sued, I now can go into court and they cannot just challenge me and say, well, we think you should have done it this way. Because I literally have a way to document, say, hey, no, this is exactly how I've been doing it. This is how I've been doing it every year. And you can look at my last 3 to 5 years and you can see how I've changed. So you can't, they love that. I know it's kind of an ancillary benefit,
Sure.
but it's kind of unique that somebody has immortalized your story in such a way that somebody else can't bend it.
It's a great ancillary benefit for sure. One of the questions, Scott, that came in is, we've talked a lot about dentists. What about other doctors and other practices?
So we specialize in the medical field. So everything in the medical that you can think of, we can do. Medical is so great because innovation exists inside of that. Whether you are a dentist, a specialist, an orthodontist, a periodontist, or whether you have nothing to do with dentistry at all, and you're a surgeon, plastic surgeon, oral surgeon, whether dermatologist, we do a ton of dermatologist work, anything in the medical, your rheumatology. Radiology is a little bit of a harder one for us because it doesn't vary quite as much in the reading of those charts, but most of the areas in the medical field have enough variation on them that we get extremely good numbers back and great success. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Do you have any other questions on that for us, Chad, that you just had off the cuff? If not, I'll share 1 or 2 anecdotes at the end here.
No, that was a question that came in on was it dental only? Because the conversation was a little heavy on that, but that's it. So, and the other questions, that have been coming in, you've been answering, time for, their requirement for time and stuff. Hey, and one question is, this is a 94-page report. So once they've met with you, and it doesn't take a lot of time. I'm so glad you talked about that. It's that initial call at lunch, it's meeting with the accountant, and then you're putting this together and reviewing it. What's the gap between meeting with them and their accountant and diving in and then being able to generate this 100, we'll call it 100 pages, I guess round up, 100-page report? How long does that process take so they get this report back?
So yeah, and we've already identified it only takes a couple of hours of the doctor's time, right? So they're not writing the 100-page report, which
exactly.
I'll never forget. We have a spine surgeon, and he goes, "Do I have to write that? Because I'm kind of busy." And we laughed. We said, "No, we'll do it for you." And he went, he goes, "Then I'm in." So a couple hours on theirs. It takes us usually to do the numbers part that you have to give to your CPA from the time we get your numbers. If it's timely, Our analyst will have a few follow-up questions with the CPA, maybe one question or two for the doctor to make sure that we have the supplies tagged appropriately. So a few minutes there. So about a month and a half on those. And on the writing portion, 3 to 4 months. But you can file your taxes and do all of that with the numbers. The report itself is only in the event you're audited, that it gets included. So usually the fastest we've done it, 2 weeks. We've had, usually as tax deadlines approach, we hustle faster. And people that are organized and can get us their data quickly, as long as we can do it, we can squeeze in the time. So we're pretty quick and we're pretty good at getting it to them. So if you're sitting here in March and you're saying, hey, April 15th is my deadline, I would like to know what I can save, we can still get that done for you. It doesn't mean that we won't have a gap in our numbers or something's missing, and we'll have your CPA file an extension in May or June, you'll file your final. We might be doing that, but you're easily inside of the realm of what's workable right now. And so if you think you owe on April 15th, give us a call. We could probably make a big difference to the tune of tens of thousands for you. And a lot of people have that money sitting in their checking account to write out. You know, it's funny. One of my anecdotes is I always ask the doctors, I say, listen, if we save you 30,000 or 20,000 by April or whatever it is, what were you going to do with it? Most of them say, well, I have bonuses to staff. I have a piece of equipment I'd like to buy. I was looking at this other new updated scanner or something like that, but I haven't been willing to pull the trigger because I wanted the cash to do it. So we kind of look at them and we say, listen, we can help you grow your business. I know, Chad, that's what you do in helping them a lot is maximizing that, right? And the revenues and the profits. And we feel like that we become a key part of that because we put cash back in their hands into the company that they then can turn around and grow and stay on the front end of that being cutting edge. And it's easy to justify the expense. So a lot of our doctors, after a few years, really get excited. They go, guess what I'm doing next year? We in the fall week, they go, guess what I'm adding? And we get so excited for them too. They're like, I'm adding this and I'm gonna add this next year and this, because they know they can already cash flow it. And they also know that opens up another study, another qualifying research activity, and the credit they have expands just a little larger. And so it's a great win-win way to kind of, from a business standpoint, bring in cash flow back to you to grow, to do the things that you want to do.
It's awesome. This is part of what I fell in love with. Immediately when I heard it, it just resonated. I'm like, all of my clients need to hear about this. And I've talked to a few who are doing something similar, right? It's few and far between. Most of them didn't even or don't know that this exists. Again, they're going through and they're doing their traditional depreciation, the write-offs, right? All the things that their CPAs know and that are within that comfort zone of that they should sort of know in the basics. But they don't understand this other aspect that, hey, through innovation, through improving patient care, what else can I do? And recognizing there's a huge pool of money that's available to really get me these additional tax credits. And I thought, this is what we need. You know, we're working with amazing doctors and dentists, and we've got a couple thousand clients. And if we can help them be more successful in their practices, you know, you've talked about those things. Is it the boat? Maybe. Is it the more bonuses for their employees? Could be. Is it that vacation they've wanted to take? Is it another piece of equipment? Is it the new car that came out? Whatever it is, you know, is it again the more marketing? Whatever they want to do, that they're like, hey, I wanted to add an additional chair. I want to grow this thing. I want to reinvest it back in the business. It's up to them. But again, now I hope those who are listening are realizing your brain is like, this sounds awesome. And it's not even that too good to be true. This is within the regulations that the government has established. So this is not pie in the sky. This is not some Ponzi scheme. This is following law, you know, that's out there and following those precedents and putting together the arguments and the data that's going to back that up. So this is what got me so excited about this, was helping our customers with what they're doing.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that, because when people say, is it too good to be true? You need to know the IRS is actually wrote a note at the end of the year and said, we are encouraging small business owners to expand their look and see if they qualify for the R&D, because it's being underutilized. And so you have literally at the IRS congressional level an encouraging note to say, hey, please take that. That's why the audit rate is really low. And as long as you have good documentation, the audit review on it is usually, they call it an IDR, an information document request, right? They look at it, they might say, hey, if you have a credit, show us that you did something with it. You send in the report. Guess what percentage of the time? It's almost never that they come back and ask for more. Because we've got a nice 100-page report, we slide that over to them and they go, hey, you actually met all the requirements, you presented it well, you organized it, great. The IRS doesn't look in an IDR and a basic audit for people doing bad things. They look for people who did nothing. If you talk to our tax attorneys, we were just on a big call a week and a half ago, and he goes, you know what the number one thing is that I see where people get in trouble is they took a credit and they had zero documentation, zero write-up. They didn't get with a reputable company. Their CPA and them just said, hey, and they kind of came up with some numbers. And then they go, and then it gets asked about, not challenged and not to throw out. They just say, can you just share us the documentation? The client goes, what documentation? And they don't realize that everybody understands that concept. If you documented it well, which is what we do for you, then your defense is close to bulletproof. And so that becomes for a lot of people where they just go, all right, I like that. I'm willing to pay for somebody to put me, organize me, and I'll give them a little bit, they get a lot. And you know what the funnest part about it is, Chad, like that doctor, we said we were saving him $3,000 a month, right? And by the time we got to charging him his fee, he'd already made double our fee in real money in his pocket. So he wrote us the check like it was nothing. He goes, guys, this has been awesome. And I already got the money starting back in January in my pocket. Or, you know, when we file the amended returns, it takes them a little longer, Chad. And I think people should understand that. If you want that $150,000, $200,000 and you're a doctor sitting out here, a dentist, you're going, well, that takes a little bit longer. Guess what? We have specialized programs to fit that so that you're not out of pocket a lot of cash. And a lot of our doctors we work with on a one-on-one basis. We're very custom. We always get paid, and they always are happy with us. They're one of our number one referring sources. The CPAs that we work with of our doctors is another great referring source. So that should tell you a little bit about us in the fact that even that call that Jed that you had where the guy goes, hey,
Exactly.
I've got 10 I need to send your way. And we really do, because the CPA looks at the report, they see this stuff and they go, hey guys, I've got 5 more. If you would just prep this and send it my way, I'd love it. And then my client would love it too. And it becomes a very great win-win for everybody involved. It's kind of fun to do.
I love it. I love it. It's awesome. Well, good. We've answered a lot of the questions that came up, and you guys were very thorough. In our last couple of minutes here, any closing thoughts that you'd love to share with the audience that we have today? As far as like even getting started, how do they contact you guys?
That's a great question. If they want to contact us, let me pull this up right here. Are we still shared on that screen?
We are. Yeah, they can see it. They can absolutely see it right now.
30 minutes can save you 30 grand. You can take that QR code right now, scan it with your phone, and set a Calendly. You can go to Acquire Tax Credits, all spelled out, acquiretaxcredits.com, and click on there and do a quick Calendly that works with your schedule, your time, when you're taking an admin day, and we'll interview you. It's really that simple. Most of them do it on a lunch hour or before work. We have a few that finish around 2 or 3 in the afternoon on an admin day, and they'll schedule that. Take 1 hour. We won't take more than one. And the first call takes a little longer because we really want to get your highlights. We want to know your story, right? And so to get to know you, we spend most of the time listening and asking just questions so you can really feed us that information. So we know who you are a little bit better, but it's really easy to get in touch with us. We'd love to get you a quick estimate, especially with the tax deadline coming up. If you need that and you're tired of giving the IRS all your money, which, hey, Chad, that is the number one, and I'm sure you hear it too, is I feel like I work till May or June to give the IRS my money. And we go, well, what if you only had to work till March or April? And they go, hey, that sounds a little better, and
Right.
I get to keep 9 months out of my year instead of only 6, right? So a little bit there. And I would say on the fun end that we have a teams win championship mentality, and the team's an acronym for us. And I'll tell it to you so you understand who we are. The T is the client is always like family. And I tell all the people that I work with, if you wouldn't do it to your mom, don't you dare do it to them. You treat them like they're your family. And our E is evolve and grow. We know that the landscape evolves and grows a little. A is always be kind. We try to err on the side of being respectful to our doctors, giving them the benefit of the doubt, trying to make sure we're getting back in touch with them very quickly. We had a client. They said, oh, we're getting our stuff prepared. They go, they won't even call us back. And I said, well, we'll call you back within an hour. And they go, really? Or you'll get us live. I said, but you can always, between 8 and 5, typically get somebody live right there. And you can say, hey, I need something quick. We'll move heaven and earth if we have to. And M, we meet you in the middle. Some of our doctors say, hey, I didn't get my tax checks in. My CPA messed up. My numbers didn't come in as good because of this, and that happened. And we say, well, what's reasonable? And what company, when they're talking about getting paid, says to you, well, what's reasonable for you? Because we want to be with you for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. So for us, being reasonable means we'll work with you. And S is our staying focused on delivering those things for you that we promised. And so our teams win championships really benefits our clients. We keep an extremely high retention rate in the high 90s. The doctors that we lose every year are the ones that sell to DSOs or MSOs
Sure.
or groups, and then the credit may or may not be brought on to the new group. Usually it's not, but all of our individual doctors and dentists, yes, they stay with us year over year. Because where else would you go to get that kind of wonderful service, wonderful benefit, and know that every year you could count on it? So, yeah, it's kind of fun that way.
I love it. I love it. This has been awesome, gentlemen, and I really appreciate you taking the time to educate our audience today. And I'm really excited for our group who's listening, and those, whether it's recorded or live today, to be able to click on this QR code to get in touch with you and to have that quick interview and find out whether or not it's going to work for them. I know that's part of it. Hey, in that first hour, you're going to know whether or not, yes, we can help you, or maybe not right now. You maybe need to grow a little bit more, maybe you need a little more innovation, maybe you don't have enough revenue coming in. And one of the things you guys shared with me is that you'll know that within that hour and be able to say, hey, when you get to this volume or this number or make some of these changes, let's talk, right? It's not one of those, we're not going to take advantage of you, we're not going to do anything, and there's nothing to do. Like we're going to do it the right way, and you guys are great that way. So I love it. Well, with that, thank you. Anything else?
That's all I've got, Chad. We just really appreciate your organization. You guys are first class. You do it right. And we love this opportunity to jump on here and work with you. Your group in helping people grow, what a special thing you guys are doing, really. And we want to honor that. What you bring to those groups is success, development, and all the things that doctors don't want to mess with, right? They want to be great at their patients. They want to be great at their care. And I think what you're doing as a group, where you bring that shell around them and hug them or hold them and say, we'll do your other stuff. I think it's special what you guys are doing. It's unique, and you guys should really be honored for that as well. And we just love the opportunity to be involved with you.
Agreed.
Well, thank you. We feel the same, Jed. Thank you. Well, gentlemen, thank you. To our audience, thank you for listening and participating with us today. We look forward to having you on our future webinar. And until the next time, wish you all the best. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Chad.
Bye-bye.